Welcome back. I'm Dina Hussein with the political segment. Continuing his visit to Washington, President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi met with leaders of American Jewish organizations during which they probed bilateral ties and issues of mutual concern. The president confirmed a settlement for the Palestinian cause could represent a huge step in history of Middle East and completely damage or change the region's critical reality. The president wished a new stage of peace, cooperation, development, and peaceful coexistence. Later, the president met with head of the Libyan Presidential Council, Mohammed al-Menfi, during which they reviewed ties and the latest developments in Libya. Earlier, President el-Sisi met with U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken and took part in dinner banquet hosted by U.S. President Joe Biden at the White House to honor African leaders participating in the U.S.-Africa Summit.
President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi resumed his participation in the U.S. African Leaders Summit taking place in the United States on Wednesday. The head of state busy schedule started by attending a business breakfast with some U.S. Republican congressmen in Washington. The meeting with Republican congressmen from the U.S. states of Kentucky, Texas, Ohio, and South Carolina. During the meeting, President el-Sisi hailed strategic and strong ties that bind Egypt and the U.S. and said Cairo is keen to communicate with decision-makers circles in Washington within the framework of mutual consultations and coordination regarding various issues. The president expressed Egypt's appreciation for the role played by the U.S. Congress in enhancing partnership between the two nations, adding that Egypt is looking forward to expanding such partnership in different channels of joint cooperation that aims at achieving mutual interests. For their part, the U.S. congressman reiterated that Egypt is a key ally to the U.S. in the Middle East region and hailed its pivotal role as a cornerstone for peace and stability in the Middle East, the Mediterranean, and Africa. They further praised Egypt's efforts in confronting terrorism and extremism, as well as boosting religious forgiveness concepts, plus the country's balanced positions to reach peaceful settlements concerning various crises in the region. The president also held a meeting with members of Egypt's Friends Group at the U.S. Congress from both the Republican and Democratic parties. Moreover, President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi met with U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken. President el-Sisi also took part in a dinner banquet hosted by U.S. President Joe Biden at the White House to honor African leaders participating in the U.S.-Africa Summit. The president also held talks with U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin in the Pentagon. On the sidelines of the summit, President el-Sisi attends the concluding session of the U.S.-Africa Business Forum. The president said he is looking forward to promoting ties in all aspects of bilateral cooperation based on mutual respect and common interests. The head of state stressed his keen interest in communicating with decision-making bodies in the United States regarding different issues of mutual concern. The U.S. lawmakers meanwhile hailed Egypt's pivotal role in the region, being a key ally to the United States.
The U.S.-Africa Summit hosted by U.S. President Joe Biden continued its activities in Washington. The sessions are entitled An Africa of Good Governance, Democracy, Respect for Human Rights, Justice and Rule of Law. Biden told the summit that he planned to visit sub-Saharan Africa in what would be the first trip by U.S. President since 2015. The U.S. President noted that he would also be dispatching many of his top advisors to Africa, including Secretary of State Antony Blinken, Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen, Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo. Biden said that the African leaders had spoken about the importance of holding free, fair and transparent elections and of working together to strengthen democracy globally. A White House statement said the leaders had discussed the challenges of holding elections and exercising the right to vote, including foreign interference and political violence, and shared best practices for how to manage these risks and ensure transparency and public confidence in the electoral process. On Wednesday, Biden called for a broad partnership with Africa and highlighted new U.S. investments, saying closer ties are crucial for the world. The Administrative Control Authority organized a celebration to launch the third phase of the National Anti-Corruption Strategy 2023-2030 under the auspices of President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi and the attendance of international organizations concerned with combating corruption. Addressing the ceremony, Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli said Egypt has drawn up ambitious policies to combat corruption, which accurately applied by the state institutions rather. The Prime Minister noted that Egypt has launched the first national strategy to combat corruption in 2014 to 2018 and was listed by the UN General Secretariat as one of the most successful practices in Egypt in the field of combating corruption. The event coincides with the world celebration of the International Anti-Corruption Day and comes within the framework of Administrative Control Authority's continuation of its efforts as a representative of Egypt in the UN Convention Against Corruption. It supports authority vision to reach a society that understands and rejects the dangers of corruption and upholds the values of transparency and integrity by identifying and evaluating corruption risks and works on prevention. On the sidelines of celebrating the launch of the third phase of National Anti-Corruption Strategy 2023-2030, two corruption agreements are to be signed between authority and ministries of youth and sports, higher education and scientific research to support coordination between all parties. On the sidelines of the Administrative Control Authority Conference on Anti-Corruption Strategy, Nile TV's international Riham Morsi conducted the following interview with Senior Governance Advisor of the Office of Democracy and Governance, USAID, Dr. Salwa Tobala.
Dr. Salwa Tobala, Senior Governance Advisor, Office of Democracy and Governance, thank you so much for joining us here on Nile TV.
Thank you. Thank you for interviewing us.
Firstly, could you tell us a bit about what you think was the importance of the third phase of the anti-corruption strategy here?
The third phase of the strategy comes while Egypt is leading the Conference of Parties under the UN, and it is the year where Egypt is completing 8 years under the previous strategies. This strategy is coming to complement the past 8 years and draw the importance of prevention as well as enforcement in the coming 8 years. In the past years, it was more into steps towards digitization, civil service reform, a lot of institutional and in-house reforms. This time it is the people's strategy and it is the government of Egypt's strategy. So for the first time it's participatory, it is inclusive, and it's also looking into what the people need, and the people are going to be part of the implementation too.
Which brings me to the next question. What are the activities that have been implemented so far when it comes to the USAID and the economic governance activity in relation to the anti-corruption strategy?
Actually, USAID through the economic governance activity has been implementing a lot of activities with the Anti-Corruption Academy. We started with supporting two members to attend different courses that are going to be essential for the implementation of the upcoming strategy during the 8 years. They attended courses at Harvard University, Columbia University, and others in Maryland. In addition, there were also preparation for the house, the academy itself. The updated website, which was launched also parallel to the strategy, in addition to the updated LMS system, the learning management system, which is also in 3 languages for the first time, English, Arabic, and French, allowing students to be attending courses in person and online. Also e-payments and a lot of information, in addition to the quarterly issue of Conscious of the Nation, which is a quarterly newsletter online, and also participation in the book fair, and including the youth of Cairo University through the model of the UN COSP.
Chairing a weekly cabinet, Prime Minister Mustafa Mbouli stressed the necessity of finding substantive plans for addressing repercussions of the Russian-Ukrainian crisis. The Prime Minister added that the government is taking quick steps to face soaring prices and issued clear instructions to monetary bodies to set a definite period for announcing the new price list of commodities and punishing violators or manipulators. He also urged the importance of developing a plan for localizing industry and poultry. Fadl. The cabinet meanwhile approved a number of significant decisions, atop of which is a presidential pardon for some prisoners, marking the Police Day in 25th of January anniversary.